The Hilltop Glove Podcast is sponsored by Mid-Carolina Service Company.
Mid-Carolina Service Company is the first name to search for your residential or commercial HVAC needs in Lexington and surrounding areas.
Just go holler at Jason and Clint. They'll hook you up on the air conditioners, on the restaurant equipment, refrigerators, refrigeration, ice machine repair. They've been doing this for years. I know them cats forever.
Family owned and operated since 2006, they pride themselves in their quality work and customer relationships. Call 803-356-4153 or visit midcarolinaserviceco.com for a no obligation quote for service today.
The Hilltop Glove Podcast is sponsored by True Brilliance Entertainment.
True Brilliance is a production, promotions, and management company dedicated to connecting artists and producers across the Carolinas to music industry professionals.
Several of their clients have placements both domestic and internationally as a result of their services.
Are you an artist or producer looking to build meaningful relationships within the music industry? Then True Brilliance is for you. Check them out at paramilitary.com. That's spelled P-A-I-R-A military.com.
This episode of the Hilltop Glove Podcast is sponsored by Bob's. Bob's is a Columbia-based retailer of over 100 Black-owned products from 20 Black-owned businesses. Bob's offers a wide range of items from household cleaning, cosmetics, and everything in between. With every visit to Bob's, you support Black-owned businesses, giving them the opportunity to grow and establish connections with our community. Bob's is located inside the Noma warehouse at 2222 Sumter Street in Columbia, South Carolina. Visit their website, weshopbobs.com, for in-store pickup or to find out more. Bob's can also be found via social media on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at weshopbobs. When you stop by, tell them the Hilltop Glove sent you. Bob's brings quality Black brands to the Columbia community. The Hilltop Glove Podcast is sponsored by Red Rooster Sports Bar and Grill. Red Rooster is your neighborhood bar and grill serving the best wings, burgers, and baskets in the Met.
Like the amazing food, the bar is always on tap, and there's plenty of screens to watch the big game. Red Rooster is the Midland's premier meetup spot for local car and bike clubs, fraternities, and sororities.
Staff is dedicated to accommodating all kinds of parties and events. If you're looking to catch a game, have a bite, and a drink, look no further than the Red Rooster.
Red Rooster is located at 7500 Wilson Boulevard, Columbia, South Carolina. For more information, visit redroostersportsbar.com or visit them on Facebook and Instagram at Red Rooster Sports Bar. Go where the winners go.
Welcome to the Hilltop Glove Podcast.
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 Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Hilltop Glove Podcast. Today we have the pleasure of interviewing the Sock Ministry. Brothers Larry and Mario believe that being well-dressed is an essential building block to living a good life. Their mission is to revive the concept of the distinguished gentleman. Their vision is reminiscent of a time where being well-dressed was the rule rather than the exception. They both believe that being dressed well is to be dressed intentionally for whatever occasion or purpose. They have committed themselves to making sure their clients take control of their images and present themselves in the best and most effective way. The brothers are diverse in the provision of their services. They can be found on site styling clients for weddings, photo shoots, and conventions. How you doing today, brother? Good to meet you.
I'm
Larry.
good, thank you. How are you?
Excellent.
Thank you so much for having me.
I hope that was a good introduction.
Trust me, I couldn't have said it better myself.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, I will go ahead and let folks know we don't have Mario with us at the moment.
That's correct.
We're speaking with Larry.
Yeah.
So we're going to go from there, and I know we're going to have a great conversation.
Yes,
We've been looking forward to seeing you.
Yes,
Your
sir.
stuff is top-notch.
I
Everything
appreciate
looks
that.
great on the site.
Yes.
Brother, all right, and I actually have a friend coming from Charleston. His big thing was making bow ties.
Okay.
So that was the first time that I had introduction to people who are working in the sense of, hey, we want you to look good and move around, but I've never seen anybody take it to the level that you all have locally.
Gotcha.
So just starting off, man, for our audience, would you be able to tell us a little bit more about yourself growing up as brothers and what influenced you as a child?
Yeah.
Wow. I'm the oldest. And so I grew up with brothers, and it's just like what you could imagine. There's a lot of diversity in the house. We all walk a different path in life, and that kind of thing is just pretty much just characteristic of every day and just our lives. Even till now, there's one of us that's the calm one, and one of us that's the more studious, and there's one of us that's the wild and adventurous one, and just the whole nine. My brother was here. That's what he would tell you. He is the one who was the wild one, and like still is. Like those things still.
So there's three of y'all.
There's three of us.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's three of us.
The three of us too. And the same balance of equation.
Yeah.
Nah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Now, where did you grow up at?
Grew up in Greenville.
Beautiful. So Greenville, born and raised.
Greenville, South Carolina, yeah.
Excellent. So growing up here, what influenced you as a child to lead the path that you all are on now?
So for me, I'm a child of the 80s and 90s.
Right,
and so I grew up watching in the 90s fashion, like labels like Ralph Lauren and that kind of, we had a lot of the urban labels like your Karl Kani's and your FUBUs and your Cross Colors and a lot of that kind of thing. It was a really big deal. What you look like was a really big deal. And as much as now we kind of in a time of individual expression, in the 90s, we literally wanted to have on what everybody else had on.
Yes.
So in the 90s, if there was a new pair of Jordans, and my thing was we were wearing, I don't know if you guys remember, there was a trend where we were wearing like black jeans and like these rayon shirts, and the long sleeve rayon shirts. And what, like everybody wanted to have the same thing on. And it was so important. Yeah. Like influences in terms of like style, or watching Eddie Murphy and Boomerang. Yeah. You know what I mean?
No
watching
style.
Eddie Murphy and Harlem Nights and just kind of that whole style thing. And it's almost like the leading man role, that guy who's the guy who all the girls want, the guy who gets all of the attention, the guy who, from a wardrobe standpoint, is the best dressed guy on the screen.
True.
And so at the end of the day, that's my influences in life, is feeling like being the leading man is also the same, is synonymous with being the best dressed man.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
Great point. And I like that you brought in like dealing with the 80s to the 90s and style. And we're talking about the importance of style and how standards, certain ways of dressing, things that are always classic, that never go out of style. And the names that you mentioned and what they were wearing at the time, I always like teasing. You said the rayon, I was thinking about Johnny Gill.
Yeah, get it. I was thinking about too when he said the black pants and the rayon shirt. I was thinking about DJ Jazzy Jeff too.
Remember that?
Fresh Prince.
Those videos.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
But that style,
same time period.
Yeah,
that time period.
And that style was so I created what we were dealing with going into the 2000s. That stuff, it started to bleed over, and then it started falling apart and went other ways. I know that influence and what you saw style-wise, how did you take that from that point in that period and move it forward to today?
A lot of those things really just, I've been working in the industry for a long time.
Playing that a little bit.
And so I've been working in retail. I started my career in like 1997, working at a small men's boutique, much like the one that I own now. And so that's where my retail career started. And just there's different, we live in the South and live in the South. And so we primarily are dressing people for church and dressing people for Easter, formal events and that kind of thing. And so there are certain things that in order for them to move forward through time, you have to still lead by those examples. You have to be like the perpetuation of those style points and those rules of engagement, so to speak. And that's pretty much what we've had to do over the years, is just model those things so that at the end of the day, you end up still being, it's almost like iconography a little bit, because people look at you and they're like, whatever he's doing must be the right thing because he's always been doing the right thing. You know what I mean? And so it's like, even still now, like I was talking about in the 80s and 90s, looking at people like your Eddie Murphys and those people who were in those movies, you even go back further to like your Billy D. Williams and those people like that. You look at them and every time you see them, they're still representing the same brand.
So I got a question branching off of that. So style in some senses can be results-based.
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. And the reality of the matter is what you said in the intro is really where we come from, and that's being intentional. Being intentional, meaning that you dress with a result in mind. Yeah. So you identify your audience, you know who it is that you're actually trying to make your impression. Let's talk about dressing to impress. We go a step further and say dress to impress who? It's important to know who you're trying to impress so that you know what the standard needs to be.
Yeah.
So like at the end of the day, if it's because I'm trying to get a job, if it's because I'm trying to land a girl, if it's because I'm trying to do whatever the result is, actually what my thought process is going into making my choices, even down to wardrobe choices. A lot of people feel like wardrobe choices and just those kind of aesthetics are superficial. But the reality of the matter is, as much as you should not judge books by their covers, it is human nature to do.
That's true.
It is very natural for us to judge books by their covers. And so with that in mind, what we always say is if people are going to be looking, then we want to make sure we give them something to see.
True.
Oh, that's so dope.
They're going to be looking. Let's give them something good to see.
That's it.
So how do you, and this is interesting because we know we talked about moving through different decades, style changes, things update, right?
Sure.
We get new ways of doing things, different ways of wearing things. First of all, how would you all, identify your unique style? And second question, how do you help customers identify their style?
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is exactly what I was saying before, meaning that you identify your audience and knowing who it is that you, generally speaking, are trying to make your impression on. At this point, we've built our own personal brand. We go with, in terms of, from a fashion standpoint, and we do make a clear distinction between fashion and style.
Break that down. Tell it to our audience.
Fashion is more of an industry thing. Fashion is more like when you go to fashion shows, like when you see runway shows or whatever the designers want you to see. That's fashion. It's current. It's very, meaning that it will change. The next season, the designers have to come up with something else. They have to show you something different. That's fashion. Fashion is basically somebody else telling you what is the right thing to wear. Style is personal. And style is actually the distinction that you make, that I can be wearing something, you can be wearing it, and our individual styles will make what you have on somehow look different than what I have on, even though it's the same garment.
Exact garment.
So fashion is the garment. The style is like the attitude. We always say this. We say we sell the garments, but the swag comes in the package. You understand what I mean? And so that's kind of where we come from. Your style is really how you put it together. If I have on a hat, if a guy could put on a hat and he wears it straight on, some guys wear it lean to the side, that kind of thing. That's that style. It is the details. The details in your own personal spin that you put on actually the choices that you make.
All right, so bring this back, and I guess because you're part of our podcast, we always delve on things that touch on hip-hop culture and the impact of hip-hop culture. And that's neat that you brought up the point about style and fashion, because it seems like when it comes to culture, especially when it comes to the way we wear clothes, we move about, there's always that fashion side is always trying to capture that style.
Yes.
And it's just very interesting that you brought it up in that way. And I never thought about it. You really cleared up a lot of that for me, just hearing it from that perspective.
Yeah, it's important to make sure that you understand, because that's how, when we get caught up in fashion, that's how sometimes we end up being, like, you remember Martin Show, you remember Jerome, you know what I mean, that kind of thing, because you find something that is on trend at the time and you identify with that, but you're not necessarily fluid with it in terms of things changing, in terms of trends changing and that kind of thing. And so you end up getting stuck in that place. And you have a lot of people, even in the hip hop culture, where there are certain things that we were doing a long time ago, and you look at them and now guys have gotten into their 30s and 40s, still trying to do some of the stuff that they were doing back when they were in their teens and 20s. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it's like that stuff doesn't translate. And that's the idea of individual style, being that you pay attention to the trends, you're aware of what people are doing, but at the same time also think through the process too. It's not just necessarily something that you let the industry dictate to you.
Building on this, I know you were talking about this earlier, having certain particular, points, or how would you put it, points or certain schemes to work off style. I always think this is interesting because I know I follow folks on YouTube that do style for men and show you how to groom yourself properly. And they give you certain pointers on certain things to do. There's even a gentleman I follow who talks about wearing jewelry proper, stuff like that. Are there certain things, something that you could express to our audience, like 3 little points of emphasis when it comes to looking at and trying to identify your style that would be important if they were to come into your shop, information that would help you lead them on a direction?
Yeah.
So when we first start, the conversation always begins really and ends also with the client understanding that it's them who has to wear it.
Gotcha.
And so at the end of the day, my personal opinion, my professional opinion, it matters somewhat, and I hope it has some influence and has some impact on the customer's choice. But at the end of the day, it's them who has to wear it. And so they ultimately have to be satisfied with it. So what my job is to do a lot of education. I'll try to teach you what those norms are, or what the rules, if you will, are. I'm very old school, so I'm classic haberdashery. Like literally, there are certain things that you have to do, certain things you do. Right after Labor Day, guy.
You tell us, that's what I want to know. That's what I want to know. What are those? Because my dad, he's big on this. He has all the GQ magazines and he did his breakdown for us on, all right, you're going to have black, brown, navy, khaki pants, or pants of whatever color. You're going to have 10 shirts to go with that, 7 ties. And then from that, you can flip and have different wardrobe. This is the type of stuff I think it makes it easy for folks because like me, I'm boring. I'll wear gray all the time. Tones, no color. My dad always teases when he sees me with color on. He says, you must be feeling good today. Are there certain things, like you said, there are certain things you can express to somebody like, hey, you know what? In your wardrobe, especially as a man of a certain age, so over the age of 25, you should have these things in your collection of clothing so that when you go out, say to have drinks after 5, or if you're going to work, you'll have something in your wardrobe, a fit that will work for you, something that you can wear, almost like having having an avatar ready to go. You have your little swatches you can put on. Because the way you're dressed right now, I love to walk around like that all the time. But I know for me, it would be something difficult. So if I'm coming in and I'm like, hey, how could you get me to dress in a way that's comfortable, but also sharp?
So I think a lot of the things actually that you mentioned that are like in your dad's lexicon are actually like a lot of the things that are appropriate. Those are actually real applicable concepts for you to use in your wardrobe. Like I said, I'm old school, and so I'm big on fundamentals. So when somebody comes to me, like we have a lot of people, believe it or not, I got 40, 50-year-old guys that come to me and says, I never owned a suit. And so a guy comes to me like that, he doesn't know his sizes, he doesn't know what's the right thing, he definitely doesn't know what's on trend and what's not. And so it's my place to not only just tell him, I could take the route of just trying to sell him something and put him in something that, is right for this time. Trust me, take my word for it, this is right. Or I could go back and try to bridge that gap a little bit, inform him, let him know what his sizes are, let him know how things are supposed to fit, and even maybe teach him a little bit of the historical, this is what it used to be, this is coming back. People used to do it like this, and this is how we're doing it again now. This is classic. This has always been around. It never goes out of style. And so that's where we go from there. So you build your wardrobe off of certain basics and certain staple things that, to your point, will actually like be universal and you can use them at all times. You never
brown and black shoes.
Brown and black shoes. And so there's a lot of options and a lot of alternatives out there. I'm the guy who you come to and I'm saying, if you don't have brown and black, when somebody says, what color shoes should I wear with this? I'm literally like, the choices are either brown or black, because you might have a green shoe. You know what I mean? You might have a cranberry red shoe. That's cool. That's cool, but it's not something that I can expect every gentleman to have in his wardrobe. Let's learn how to build it off the basics.
This portion of the podcast is brought to you by Lynx Recording Studio.
Lynx is a premier audio and video recording studio in the greater Charleston area with 4 completely different booths, multiple peripherals, and 4 producers. They have the ability to service all facets of audio and video creativity.
If you need to record a song, a podcast, create a demo, or even take headshots and complete drops for Hollywood film, they've done it.
Call them at 843-879-9386 or find them online at lynxrecordingstudios.com. That's Lynx, Lynx, recordingstudios.com.
As a matter of fact, he always says that you have to know the rules before you go out and try to break them. A lot of people are out here trying to break the rules and trying to be the exception, and they don't know what the rule is. You don't know what you're supposed to do, but they're out there trying to rebel and rage against the machine.
And I know, because I like to dress and look nice, and I'll have specific things that I wear because I know for me it's easy.
Sure.
I know I can go to it. I know it looks good on me. It's probably why I wear gray all the time.
You know what? I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because that's to me, that's your style.
Yeah, that's
you know
my
what I mean.
style.
And so that's your individual style. That's your choice that you make at times. And I'll tell you, I used to be the same guy, and I've been doing this for a long time. I met my wife. My wife and I went to high school together, and when we started dating, and she noticed the same thing. She said, "All you wear is blue and tan and gray." And I'm thinking, now I'm feeling like I'm a guy I'm a dresser. Just that's my life, right?
Yeah,
but she didn't appreciate the fact that I just didn't wear a whole lot of colors. So she told me, I'm going to put some color into your life. And I thought, I'm doing fine on my own. You know what I mean? I do this. You know what I mean? This is my job. And before I knew it, then I looked in my closet. It was oranges and pinks and yellows and all kinds of stuff going on in my closet. And it's okay. So, you know, I'm still who I am with a little bit of splash of something else. And sometimes somebody like me, or somebody, in my case, somebody like her, comes along and they introduce just a little bit of something else to you. Not to change you, but just to enhance you.
Enhance, I like
you know, really, if you think like a photograph or something like that, sometimes you mess with the colors.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? When you're editing a photo, sometimes you'll actually adjust the hues or something like that. And that's all it is. Sometimes just adding a little bit of something to you, not to change you, but just to make you just a little bit better, just step you up just a little
style
bit.
enhance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but we work with your individual style, though. I don't want you to dress like me. I want you to dress like the best version of you.
So you just come in to your shop, as is, from there you can help direct that person.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
And like you said, kind of segueing, I know you talked to Blue about your wife. I know we want to transition a little bit into family, but the term "my brother's keeper" refers to taking care, watching over your fellow human being. But in your case, literally, you're your brother's keeper.
Sure, absolutely.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
So honestly, what's it like working with your brothers?
It's interesting because there's a dichotomy of dynamic there, because there's a personal relationship there, but then there's also the necessity and the urgency of a business relationship there. So it's our business relationship actually has been born out of the impact that our personal relationship had. And the both of us feeling like we have something to offer, something to bring to the table. So we feel like whatever this is going to be, whatever the magnitude of this will be, it'll be much better because of us joining forces, if you will. But those two dynamics do collide a lot. At times, I'm the big brother, and at the end of the day, there are certain times when I have to decline, and I can't necessarily always be. And so he'll tell you at times, he's like,
happening to me.
I'm the big brother sometimes.
You got to veto some things.
For a long time, for a long time, I was undefeated and unchallenged. But then we got into this relationship. We got into a business situation, and at the end of the day, sometimes I have to follow his lead, and sometimes I have to do what I'm told and be in the place. And I'll tell him a lot of times, tell me where you want me to stand. Tell me where you want me to be at. That's what I need to do. And it's important that those kind of, as much as we can keep those things segregated, that we do that, because otherwise then we end up not really reaping the full benefits of actually joining forces in that way.
That is a cool part to have in a relationship, because basically you can get over all that weird uneasy feeling because you already know each other.
Sure.
Very developed from there. That leads to a natural ability to have a good business relationship if you think about it in the proper concept.
Of course, at the end of the day, we're still brothers and we're still men. And so being men, we still have the challenge of ego that comes into it. And so at the end of the day, you can't help it. It can't be avoided. And so as much as we try to respect each other's space, and we try to make sure that we understand each other's individuality. At the same time, there's also the challenge of, there are sometimes when I want what I want, and there are sometimes that he wants what he wants. And so we do have, there are some testosterone challenges some days.
And in the world of fashion and style, you can't leave the ego out of that.
You can't leave the ego out, because it's all subjective.
Yes,
and at the end of the day, it's always what you think. As much as we can, we a lot of times do try to collaborate. And so what we'll do, we'll work with a client, or we'll work even with a vendor sometimes, and make choices, and we'll compare notes. What do you think? What do you think? I'll just defer to what you think in this particular case. And we a lot of times have to agree to disagree, but then we also a lot of times have to pull rank. And there are certain times when we have to pause and we have to say, wait a minute. No, you know who's who. Let's make sure we are very careful to make sure that we don't get lost in the urgency of business, and we lose because we do prioritize our personal relationship over. At the end of the day, if this whole business collapses, we still have to be brothers. We're still family at the end of this. Yeah. And so I think it squashes a lot of possible drama that there could be because, I have my path in life. My brother has his path in life. And sometimes those trains run on totally separate tracks. Yeah. But we, at the end of the day, remember that beyond anything, we may get upset with each other. My brother and I say all the time, we fight all the time, but at the end of the day, we kiss and make up, we go out to eat.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Exactly.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
That's how it works, right? But then it's over. Right. Yeah.
And I know, just moving on, because I know I don't want to hold too long so we can get a good wrap up, but I do want to ask you this question. With the business, first of all, your Black-owned business.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
How do you source your products, and where are you located here in Greenville?
We source our products through traditional wholesale marketplace. And so we have relationships with manufacturers and with vendors. And so we source our goods like that. And I got to tell you something. It's not something that came easily to me. I worked in the corporate retail world where, you open up your back doors and whatever the company decided for you is what comes into the building. And you make those choices that way. And it's almost like to do it on your own is to get into the back door of the industry and learn things in a way that you hadn't learned them before. Yeah. But that's how we acquire our goods, through relationships with vendors, through wholesale vendors. And that's pretty much the tack that we take.
Because a lot of Black folk, they don't understand that. And I know one thing about our podcast is getting, especially with millennials, to understand how business operates, really works. Yeah. So for instance, they're going to go into your website, they're going to come to your store, and see you have all this stuff going on and see it. But they don't know how you get it. Sure. And I tell people, man, there is a background business going on here. You don't realize the work that they have to put into source the material, bring it to you. Because I'm up here looking at your site and looking at all the stuff up here. And I'm like, how are they getting everything in? I know you are in the back stitching.
No, not at all. Couldn't possibly.
Exactly.
It's important to have mentors. I definitely had a mentor, and that's somebody who took me under his wing in the business. And he said, listen, this is what I've done. A lot of things that nobody ever told me. Yes. And you hopefully pass these things down through the generations, so to speak, and help the next guy along.
That's a blessing. Yeah. That is a blessing. That's another thing we always talk about on this podcast is having great mentors, because a lot of older folk, especially for some reason, they don't communicate well with the younger generation to pass down these ideas and this information so that we can continue on and continue to thrive as well without needing to suffer.
It's important.
Yeah, like give us a hug. I don't want to have to go across the Brooklyn Bridge to get you a cheesecake so Diddy give me a record deal. Make it a little easy, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's important. And I think certainly in our community, talking about being Black-owned businesses, it's the only way that we survive. The only way we survive is that we have to coalesce a little bit. We have to have a coalition of like-minded people and like-minded people handling the challenges that we have in the marketplace. And also when the next guy comes along, if there's any way that we can help them along. And quite frankly, it's the way that people in other communities progress. But somehow or another, there's a challenge in our community to be able, when we have something we want to, it's our nature to try to hold on to it and try to keep it to ourselves. And it's like the model has already been established. The other communities, that's how they end up owning every gas station on every corner in the neighborhood, and how they own every grocery store. And you know what I mean? That's how that works. And it's just pushing that down, and we have to lead by examples. And if nobody else is doing it, we have to do it so that other people see that it's being done.
Perfect.
Perfect. And I think a lot of that, too, it really leads into just the fact that maybe from a societal standpoint, we've always struggled with finding an identity, finding a place, at least a place and a purpose of respect.
Sure.
Where people look upon us in a positive light. And so anytime we create that space, whether or not we're blessed with being in that space or we created ourselves, very hard for us to see ourselves outside of that identity in that space. And to make that transition, because we don't really see that in our culture.
No.
And one of the things I always compare it to is like the old preacher syndrome. See it a lot in the church. You'll see a church, you'll see a pastor at a church, and it might be a large church and be a small church, but you always see a dynamic like after a couple of years, another church splinters off. And it's the same, and it's like a younger pastor takes followers, right? But we never talk about it. It's just one of those things that happen. Why does that pastor feel like they have to leave to create their own thing where they were already somewhere if we're all supposed to be working together as a community? And it's nothing against the church. It's just...
Why create the wheel again?
Why create the wheel again? And we see that.
I think that there's probably some fault on both sides of a scenario like that. In the spirit of the point that we were making before, is that there has to be respect given to the people that came before you, such that you understand that they have something that they can teach you that, you know, that a lot of what we do and a lot of what we have, we wouldn't have it and we wouldn't be able to do it if it weren't for them.
You got to be able to receive.
Then there's also the responsibility on the part of the elders or the generation that came before to make sure that you make this transition, that you pass the baton, so to speak, because you understand that you understand not only that your time is limited, but you understand that things change.
Yes.
And sometimes you need another perspective. You need another vantage point. And sometimes in order for us to continue, like I was just using as an example in our family, my mother and my aunts and stuff, they were responsible for all the family gatherings. And we got Thanksgiving coming up.
Yes.
And they're starting to get older.
Yeah.
One of my aunts passed away last year. And so it's like you realize that the generation changes and they age over. And at some point, you got to pass that down.
Yeah.
And you can't just say, okay, now it's your turn.
Yeah.
You got to say, here's my pound cake recipe.
Thank you.
Here's my mac and cheese recipe. So let me give you this and let me see what you do with it while I'm watching.
Thank you.
And let me see if you do different with it. Yeah, so make sure I don't mess it up now because, you know, definitely I'm not going to run no experiments on Thanksgiving Day. But at the same time, what you may not realize is that if you give me what you've got, I take it with current information, what I know now, I may be able to add my spin to it that keeps living.
Yes.
And understand that it's not necessarily about us, but it's about the concepts that we help perpetuate.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
we keep that going. And that becomes, I think, a cultural thing that we can keep going through time.
Yeah, and that's institution building.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Which we don't see a lot of. We don't see a lot of. It seems like in our community, we're doing a lot of trend setting, but like not a lot of culture, we don't adhere to a cultural standard.
We have a fear of culture building.
Yeah, and it's all, but everybody, to your point, tries to reinvent the wheel. Everybody feels like their thing is the new thing, or that their way is an innovative way. When there are certain things that are not broken, so there's no need to try to fix them. You know what I mean? And I think if we start seeing more of that, I think we'll probably see something different in our communities.
And that's a great dialogue because we started at one point and we ended up back up at that point. That's why you have certain classic styles.
Absolutely.
Because it ain't broke.
That's
no reason to fix it. I'm going to keep wearing my gray.
Yeah.
I'm telling
Right.
That's how it works.
Keep it going.
Yes. But just to finish out, we always like to ask our guests what current projects they're working on, how we can find you out here in the interweb on the social media. And then also for your instance, if you could drop the location and where people can actually come to your shop.
Okay. Yeah. We actually are on social media with the Sock Ministry through all three words on Facebook and Instagram. They're located in Fountain Inn, South Carolina, which is the southern part of Greenville, South Carolina, Greenville County.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're there right on Main Street, right in the heart of everything. Fountain Inn is a community that's growing, and it's actually going to be a destination probably in the next year or so. It's going to be probably a new spot, a spot for people to show up in Fountain Inn. So we're in a good place there. We actually everything that I'm doing right now, we actually are trying to develop affiliations and partnerships with other organizations like we're doing. We're providing wardrobe for the Cotillion that's sponsored by the Kappa Alpha sorority.
Nice.
And so we got our feet, like both feet plugged into the soil on that right now. Yeah. Going forward, that's pretty much where we'll be found is trying to make alliances and build those kind of connections in the community and just spreading the word and trying to keep it alive.
Awesome.
Yeah. Man, that's dope, man. So just for our audience, man, if you need to, especially if you're a gentleman and you're trying to look fly, dope, trying to have some nice threads on you for if you're going out to a date, if you have a business meeting, if you're trying to get a job, or if you just want to look good, please see the Sock guys. Yes, I'm trying to say, please see the Sock Ministry here in Greenville. And I know even if, and this is a big one, I think about this, you all do ship.
Absolutely.
So you don't, if you can't make it up here, not a problem. They can ship things to your door. Do you all do any online consulting?
We don't do online consulting per se,
it's harder to
but
do.
I'll be honest with you. My job in a lot of cases is a lot of personal shopping. I literally, before I came here today, was delivering something we talked through.
I didn't even know
we talked through on Facebook, and so literally I had to drop it off before I came here today. So yeah, it's definitely a part of
they do personal
full
shopping.
service, absolutely full service.
So I know I'm going to take advantage of some of this stuff because I always have what I call my Swagger Staggers Fridays.
Yeah,
and I always go in dressed well, looking nice, so I want to feel good going into the weekend.
Gotcha.
Make sure everybody else comes in. So I will be bothering y'all, give you a call and get some things ordered.
Much. I look forward to it.
Certainly.
Yes,
so
sir.
Just signing out for this episode. I know DJ and what?
Skip.
Tamaya is in the background making us look pretty, taking pictures and some videos of us. And of course, we have from the Sock Ministry, Larry.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We want to thank you for joining us today.
Oh, and special shout out to UCF Upstate Circle Friends for hosting us today. And we're in the new Article Media recording studio. It's an amazing podcast studio.
Nice.
Just getting started. Amazing people. Like I said, it's the first interview we've done here.
Yes.
We've already enjoyed it. I want to shout them out before we got off air.
Yeah, man. I'm telling you, man, extremely beautiful place. Excellent garden in the back. They've done a good job of taking this place and rehabbing it. So if they have a chance to stop by, if you want to donate, if you want to do something for the cause, please stop by and do. We'll make sure to keep promoting it as we go through. But I want to thank the audience for joining us today. And of course, the Hilltop Glove Podcast signing out. Be good to somebody that you know around you, man. Be peaceful out here. Move easy on this Saturday. And we'll see you on the next episode.
That's it for today's episode of the Hilltop Glove Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and other platforms. Also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Hilltop Glove.